Well, good morning. Thank you for joining me, Colonel Keith Raymond with the Civil Air Patrol. I'm very excited about this opportunity to interview you. So let's jump right in. Just give us a little bit of your background and how you got interested in the Civil Air Patrol.
My background professionally is I'm a director of facilities and construction in healthcare. I've been working in healthcare hospitals, both in Massachusetts and currently in New York for the last 12 plus years. And the remaining 20 or so that I've been working have been in facilities, but in government, working for the Pentagon under the Wounded Warrior Program, Military One Source,
Oh, yeah.
building facilities and so forth, and that working in the private sector. So it's been facilities, construction, design, that type of deal has always been my passion. From working in the old days of the phone companies all the way up to now healthcare, which is what I'm doing. Originally from Massachusetts, I'm 69 years of age. I've spent 6 years here in upstate New York when I decided to retire for 3 months and then get called back into active service working in facilities and moved up here in the middle of a pandemic to a little town called Cobleskill, New York, which is about 28 minutes west of Albany, so in the upstate area. But I lived for the early portion up until 2020 in Massachusetts, born in Boston, raised in South Shore, worked in that general area until we decided, as I say, to retire in 2019, which lasted about 3 months before everything changed. So go from there. I'm married. My wife and I have been together 48 years. We have one child who lives up here in New York with us, and that's about it. How I got involved in Civil Air Patrol, primarily to see my family. One of the things at Civil Air Patrol is it's a family-oriented program. It's children in the family, it's mom and dad, it's even grandparents and so forth. My brother, who first joined Civil Air Patrol in 1975, started attending a local unit, which then had attracted my sister to the program in late 75, which attracted my mom and dad into the
Wow.
program around the same time. So I was left at home on weekends by myself. And I thought, well, I guess the only way to see my family is to join the program. So in 1976, I joined the local unit with them, and the rest is history. We just kind of got involved in the emergency services, the leadership, and so forth that is offered to cadets and seniors within the program. And I started at age 18, and here I am, 69, still involved. I'm the last of the Mohicans. All of my family have either, unfortunately, have passed or have left the program. When my wife and I got married, a prerequisite was that she joined the program. It was part of the wedding vows. And everything went well until she got to the I will obey you, which is part of our leadership piece. But we still lasted 48 years. But still, it has been a program that I tell you, a lot of what I've learned, a lot of folks that I've met throughout my travels in CAP have also benefited my professional, the opportunities in leading groups of people within CAP. I can implement in leading groups of people in healthcare and in the professional side. So it's a double-edged sword in a positive way. The program enriches, I think, has enriched my ability to do my job, relate with people, and so forth. I have been a squadron commander, and that is an individual that's in charge of a local unit for five squadrons within Massachusetts. I have been a group commander, an individual who is in charge of a number of local squadrons. I've been a chief of staff for the wing commander, who is the individual who oversees the state operations of Civil Air Patrol. And I've acted as a wing commander for a short duration. But I think all of these command and leadership opportunities, not just for me, but I think everybody, it turns introverts into extroverts. It gives people an opportunity to stand up and talk in front of large crowds and make decisions that they probably wouldn't normally do.
Right.
So there is an opportunity for cadets in the program, depending on how they advance in grade. There's opportunities within the professional career, but there's opportunities for appointments to the Air Force Academy, and if they decide to go into the
Oh,
service. So when we take a look at Civil Air Patrol, yeah, there's a great history of how we got to where we are today from the people that started this program in 1940, 41. But today's activities are they're just unbelievable when you take a look at opportunities for leadership growth, for professional growth, and so forth. And just the ability to have somebody turn into that, I'm a follower to a leader,
yeah.
through our programs, our educational programs, aerospace programs. And a lot of it is to kind of get young children, and I say children, these are young adults from the ages of 12 to 18,
Okay.
to start thinking about what tomorrow's bringing. Instead of standing on the street corner and maybe getting involved in the wrong, or having the parents read about them in the wrong way on the paper or on the telephone or television, I should say. It kind of builds their morale, their motivation, their self-respect through all of the programs. We motivate them to hopefully become private pilots. We take them up in the aircraft that we have and let them learn to fly and so forth, and hopefully motivate them to go further and become a private pilot, a commercial pilot, a fighter pilot who knows, the opportunities and the doors that are open to members of CAP.
Wow, that's
So
fantastic.
yeah, that's kind of where I've always been raised service before self. It sounds corny, but it's service. We're on this planet to serve, to make things better for the next generation. And for me, I served in the Army National Guard. I was in the 110th Field Artillery in Massachusetts. I did my time there. But then after you do your 4 years and so forth, it's kind of like, what's next?
Hmm.
And this was an opportunity, although it was volunteer, it was making a difference in somebody's life, whether that's being available to listen to somebody that's having some issues, excuse me, as a senior, or helping a cadet, progress in a certain area. So I think it's one of the things that made me want to join and stay joined,
Sure.
apart from seeing my family. But
Sure.
other than that, that
Yeah.
was it. So I think that that's the answer to that question, and it's just, yeah, it's the best kept secret,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Now, you're the historian for, I apologize, I've already forgotten. So, a portion of New Hampshire or the entire or the Northeast region, remind?
So I am, since I originally come from Massachusetts, I serve as a historian for the state of Massachusetts for all
Ah,
things Civil Air
okay.
Patrol. And since I do that, and I guess I either attended a meeting late or I'm the old guy, I am the historian for the Northeast region. So I
Okay.
provide guidance and try and I maintain the requirements for the historical program for Civil Air Patrol in our area, in our region, which
Okay.
includes Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and then Mass, Rhode Island, and Connecticut.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I like to believe it's because of my knowledge and my actual history, not my age. But in any event,
I know, it shall take it. I know. Well, then, can you explain how CAP was originally part of the Civil Defense Agency in World War II, and then how it kind of morphed into what it is now after the war as the auxiliary?
I think the easy answer to that is in the 30s, we'll say, starting around when there was some activity going on overseas. There were
Okay.
a group of individuals within the US that happened to see what was going on. And I think the thought was, how do they implement the civilian air avionics, the private airplanes, to help in identifying wherever the need was. And the individual that's primarily the founder of Civil Air Patrol is a gentleman by the name of Gil Rob Wilson. Gil Rob Wilson was a businessman. He was traveling the world, and he happened to be an aviation enthusiast. And his question was, if things go south, and I'm editorializing, but if things go south, as we're seeing in Europe, where what are the issues that the United States are going to face? And the first thing was security, and assisting in aviation, because at the time the U.S. was ramping up their Army Air Corps. The Navy was prevalent. The Army Air Corps was prevalent for anything aviation. And what they were realizing there was a shortness of pilots and observers for the military aircraft. So how could they augment that void? And the idea was, let's create an organization under the civil defense at the time, because that was the prominent member, if you will, for anything civilian.
Okay.
And put together these aviation enthusiasts with private planes, and let's see how we can utilize them. And to convince, it's kind of funny, in 1940, to convince in the city of Boston area, a few of the private pilots and planes put together about 10,000 little parachute, little paper planes and so forth. And at night they flew over a certain area of Boston that had factories, and they dropped these leaflets, these airplanes and so forth. And then the next day called the owner of the factory, whether it was a shoe factory or some type of manufacturer, and said, no need to go to work today. Your factory was bombed last night. And what it did is it showed the vulnerability of the U.S. in certain areas. So Gil Rob Wilson, Tom Beck, he was a businessman. There's another gentleman, Guy Gannett from Texas, went to somebody who was kind of heading the civil defense, and that's Fiorello LaGuardia, the mayor of New York at the time.
Okay, yeah.
And they got together and said, okay, here's some things that we saw, here's some things that we're concerned about, and here's a resource that's not really tapped. How can we utilize it? And from that process, they kind of developed the main functions of Civil Air Patrol during the 1940s. That was Coastal Patrol, that was Border Patrol, and that was what we call tow target. There was a couple of other items that came in the last courier, but Coastal Patrol, they realized during the war, the beginning of the war, Nazi submarines, U-boats were looming off the coast of New York all the way down to Mexico on the East Coast. And they were sinking tankers, they were sinking shipping vessels at a rapid rate. Unfortunately, I think the realization was, again, because there wasn't enough military pilots and aircraft to do coastal patrol as well as doing what they're designed to do, they, sorry about that, they initiated a temporary program with Civil Air Patrol to patrol the coast and to identify these vessels that were off the coast and call the military so that they could come out and either track them, destroy them, or chase them away. We probably next was the Border Patrol, which is, when we look at today's situation, you have folks that really shouldn't be living in the country, accessing the country, coming through vulnerable points. And those vulnerable points were the South Coast, Texas, Mexico, Mexican border, and so forth. So we engaged with the Forest Department to patrol the southern border to report suspicious entries coming in, things that might have been missed by just government resources alone.
Sure.
Tow target was another one that was up and down pretty much the East Coast where we see, because the coastal patrol bases lasted about 18 months. It took about 18 months for the Germans to realize that these little red and yellow airplanes that are flying around are really giving away they couldn't be efficient in what they were trying to do, which was disrupt and destroy transports. So over a period of time, the German hierarchy decided, we're not going that way. We're going to just stay on the European coast. So the need for coastal patrol, although a great position or a great job, went over to what they call tow target. And they realized that the military and the artillery and so forth really didn't have a practice opportunity to try and shoot down. So Civil Air Patrol, and it sounds crazy, but Civil Air Patrol, with that job, would tie on banners. If you've ever been down to the beach and you see the plane flying overhead with the banner, consider that a Civil Air Patrol plane with a similar banner tied, and artillery and riflemen would fire on it to try and hit the target to see how good they were. That was a very interesting position to be flying around and somebody shooting at you. And We did, we did a number of hours, but we also lost a number of aircraft due to the inaccuracy, if you will, of their aiming. But
Right.
all said and good, that program, again, those coastal border tow target, probably between 1942 to 1943, 18 to 22 months before everything started to slow down with the concern on the U.S. and focus more towards the
Okay.
European theater. One of the questions that was in there is cadets. What was the position of cadets during the 1940s and the late 40s? You know, Civil Air Patrol at that time, not the primary job, but kind of a secondary was to train young people to become pilots, get them involved in aviation so that they can move from pilots maybe into military pilots and start to restore the voids, if you will, that were in the Navy and in the Army Air Corps. Because again, the Air Force wasn't around until the late 40s, early 50s before the United States Air Force was even
Actually separated out, right?
yeah.
Right.
So a lot of the program, again, leadership and aviation and some of the projects that we have, security, search and rescue was a big thing for Civil Air Patrol. Civil CAP, and I know I'm all over the board, so I apologize.
No,
But
that's
Civil Air
okay.
Patrol is responsible for 70% of all of the inland search and rescue. So a hiker goes out to Mount Washington, or somebody's up here in Lake Placid walking around and they get lost. Or a private airplane, the pilot becomes a little too confident and doesn't realize where he's at, and unfortunately hits something, goes down, whichever. Coast Guard is the primary organization for search and rescue on sea or on the waterway. But when you get into a situation like inland, mountain, that area, it falls under the Civil Air Patrol to coordinate. And so these cadets are trained, and one of their functions during that period of time is search and rescue, to assist in down pilots, aircraft, missing people, and so forth.
Okay.
And also to train them, hopefully motivate them into becoming pilots. So that's where the cadet side kind of initiated in the early 40s. And today it's just blossomed into search and rescue, science, technology, aerospace. It is just, there is a multitude number of scientific and leadership programs that these cadets go through as they join now.
So this isn't fair. It wasn't a question I sent you before we met. I don't have children, so I don't really get what they're able to do at what age. And to me, you said your cadets start at age 12, 13?
12, yep.
That seems very, very young. What can you, I mean, do you actually stick them in an airplane behind the wheel?
We do. So a typical, there's two types of aviation activities. One is powered flight. So we have one of the largest civilian, we being Civil Air Patrol, have one of the largest civilian inventory of Cessna aircrafts, 4-passenger aircraft that we use for search and rescue, for other disaster relief. Hurricane Katrina comes in, 9/11. Our planes are in the air with photographers, with officials surveying the damage so that resources can be shifted to the proper locations.
Oh.
So that's our senior side. We're also looking for downed aircraft. We're also looking for a number of different things.
Right.
With the cadet side, what we're doing is we're teaching them navigation. We're educating them into aerial photography. We're just introducing them into powered flight. We'll put we'll put two cadets into a plane with a pilot. Pilot will take off, fly out for an hour. But while he's flying out, and after the plane is stable, we've taken off, everything's good. He says, "Okay, Cadet Jones, you're in charge. Fly this heading and take the plane." And what's hopefully going to be is that cadet's going to get motivated because they're flying a $100,000, $200,000 machine, and they're actually banking. They're reading the dials. They're maybe on the radio talking, but they're getting some education. They'll land at an airport. And landing and taking off are always the pilot, never the cadet. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that's the trickiest part.
I always say a landing is a controlled crash, but
Yeah,
the pilot will
great.
land. They'll switch
Okay.
seats. The front seat goes to the back goes. The pilot takes off, and they fly back, and that cadet gets orientation on
Oh,
the
okay.
flights. They have in their curriculum 6 orientation flights, and each one is a little bit different. One might be navigation, one might be something within the aircraft, but each flight is a program for an hour to educate the cadet in aviation. And again, our goal, is that maybe they will become the pilot that's
Sure.
sitting in the left
Sure.
seat down the road.
Sure.
Um, some cadets don't always take it. Not every cadet. It's an opportunity that's part of the curriculum.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
some cadets don't like driving in a car, never mind an airplane. So we understand that, but that's it. The second aviation piece is glider. We take them up to New Hampshire and up to Vermont, and there are areas where we have Civil Air Patrol gliders. We'll take them up in the air, front seat, back seat, cadet in the front, hands the stick and so forth. The pilot's behind there to control the initial and the landing, but it gives the cadet an opportunity to understand what non-powered flight is.
Sure. Wow.
They go away, cadets go away once a summer for 1 week to an encampment, which instills leadership capabilities, drill and ceremonies. They learn with the military on what the Army, the Air Force for the week. They're up at 5 in the morning. They eat in chow lines. It's almost like a drill week for the active duty. And they learn what that side of Civil Air Patrol is like. And then there are classrooms, STEM programs. We had a couple of squadrons last year that built a high altitude balloon, and they sent up different items. Eggs, can an egg last at 30,000 feet? The balloon goes up, they bring it back down, they see the product. It's a scientific experiment. There is a team that works on that. So from a science technology base, we have programs that keep them. So 12-year-olds don't necessarily throw on a 50-pound pack and, like we've seen in Heartbreak Ridge, run through the hills. There are programs that aerospace, communications, things of that nature that they
Okay.
get involved in. Yeah, it
Well,
really is it's a super program. And
yeah.
I say that because I've been in it. I've been in the Scouts. I've been in a lot, but this one here really, I think, offers just such a
Yeah. It sure
lot of
sounds like
information.
it. Yeah. Just such
Yeah,
an incredible
yeah,
variety and opportunity.
absolutely.
Now,
So
something
we,
sorry, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, no, I was just going to say, so in regards to those 3 missions, the primary one, the Coastal Patrol, just in the 18 months period, just to give you an idea, the Civil Air Patrol, the Coastal Patrol in 1942 to 43 sighted 173 enemy submarines off the East Coast. They sank 2 of them because they were able to carry depth charge. They spotted 363 survivors in which they were able to identify and serve. With regards to tow target, we flew over 20,000 missions, towing those targets so they can become more proficient. In 1942-44, in the Border Patrol, we flew over 4,700 missions, 30,000 flight hours along the Mexican border. And so we had one job, which was courier, to transport mail personnel from private airports to military airports, back and forth and so forth. We flew over 3.5 million pounds of mail during that mission during the 1940s. So the mission was important. It was very active. Unfortunately, well, it depends on how you say it. It was short lived because things got better for the United States in regards to the concern about
Okay.
infiltration and so forth. So, but that
Although
was
I
the,
had no idea that that many subs were off the coast. So many articles or whatever, they kind of missed that part. Oh, well, we didn't get attacked, after Pearl Harbor. No, we weren't invaded. We weren't. And I had no idea that they
yeah,
came
I kind
close.
of mentioned, we mentioned that. And the interesting part is to 173 that Civil Air Patrol cited. How many did they not cite before
Right.
Civil Air Patrol
Yeah.
was installed? And how many possibly did we not get because the airplane was in the northern part of the Atlantic and this was coming in. But you could stand on the beaches of New York and you could see the SWAT sticker on the submarine as it was out there in the water. That's how close they were. And
Wow.
so they performed valiantly to the point that you pointed out, I think, in the email. In 2014, they were recognized by Congress with the Congressional Gold Medal, which I actually have a gold medal that was issued for one of our members in Massachusetts in our display. I think it's in New Hampshire at the museum.
Fantastic.
But, by wartime, by the end of the war, in 1940, Civil Air Patrol, we flew over 118,000 missions combined. That would be border and coastal and all, 118.
Wow.
Over 24 million miles, these private pilots without combat experience. That's the important part that we tend to not consider. These pilots were out flying over the ocean, looking for German U-boats, sometimes under fire, doing these border patrols, and none of them were part of the Army. They had no military experience. They had no combat training. These were private people like you and I who decided for God and country we were going to make a difference in the world at that time.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, it really is. Unfortunately, we lost 35 members in all of the. Those are the achievements, but the failures. We lost 128 aircraft, I believe, in that period of time. 35 pilots, observers, crew. And these people were the commander of the Coastal Patrol on Cape Cod, which was the Massachusetts one, which I'm very familiar with, was, oh, goodness gracious, Gibbs, Gordon Gibbs. Why is that important? Gordon Gibbs owned the Gibbs School of Secretarial during the 40s and 50s that trained young ladies how to become professional. Yes. He was the owner, president, CEO, whatever the title was, but he owned that, and yet he was involved in Civil Air Patrol, directing aircraft out overseas to watch for German U-boats. So,
everybody
anyways,
was involved.
I digress. I apologize.
No, that's okay. It's just exciting to hear and to know this information. Now, I did read something that there were female pilots in CAP. Is that right?
So if you recall the WASP program,
yes,
this was women's
air service pilots. Yes.
So 80% of your WASPs in that program came from Civil Air Patrol. Again, private pilots. I'm not quite sure. I've never seen a document where a female pilot was actually flying combat missions. They were helping out in regards to
civilian, right?
You're right. So tasked with coastal patrols, we had a few female pilots that were involved, either as pilots or observers in the administrative end. But a lot of them, they were finding that there was a need to fly aircraft, military aircraft, from point A to point B because all of the other pilots were overseas.
Right. Somebody had to get them somewhere.
A lot of that effort, the support came from pilots from Civil Air Patrol. So they started out like most of the crew, helping, flying, working, administrative, whichever, but they also had pilots experience. And from that, they kind of morphed into the WASP program. And that's where a lot of the females that were in Civil Air Patrol started out, was in Civil Air Patrol and then over to the WASP program.
Fantastic. Well, we've got a few minutes left. Is there anything else we haven't covered that you would love for people to know about CAP, either historically or currently?
Well, the first thing is, one of the things I was reading the notes, and it says CAB became the auxiliary. It is the auxiliary. It's one of the wheels of the Air Force, and we support them in a number of different functions, both in search and rescue and pilots and so forth. But there's over 70,000 members. I think in the original one, it said something like 55,000. But it's ever growing. It seems like it ebbs and flows. We have a large membership, and then we kind of die off, and then it comes back. And we are rebounding in our program incredibly. And the word is, there a lot of our local units are doing more and more marketing, if you can think of. We are a corporation. We are a congressional approved corporation, federally supported by the federal government with an annual budget to supply our aircraft and radio and equipment to do the job. But it's all volunteers. It's people like myself that, have a day job, and then at night we're meeting. We meet on weekends. We're brushing up on our proficiency, whether it be FEMA programs, because we also serve in the area of FEMA during disasters and so forth. So it's, when we take a look, it's cadets, it's young adults that make a large number of our program that are doing the job that you would say 12 years old. And
Yeah.
they're on the radio talking with a military helicopter coordinating in or whichever. That's incredible. Most are standing on a street corner trying to make
Oh,
it.
yeah. I'm trying to think of what I was doing at 12, and it certainly
It's
was not that.
exactly. We have 52 wings. We have 52 state-sponsored units across the country. We have thousands of local units within, hometown USA that are make up of cadets and seniors. It is just, I think, the thing I would love to have folks do when they're looking at this information, they're up at the museum, is saying, where are they located? How can I become involved?
Right.
I started out 1 hour a week working in radio communications. And I probably, because of the historian, I'm probably on the phone and doing the job, 7 days a week. You make it what you want it to be.
Okay.
And there are people involved. I was on a call yesterday with the former ambassador to the UN, who is a member of Civil Air Patrol in Texas, because we're working on taking the historic display out of New Hampshire in October, and they want to have it in a museum down in Texas. So you never know who you're working with.
Right.
But it is just a phenomenal job with a phenomenal history that I think, as I say, is just the best kept secret, unfortunately.
Oh.
I've been trying to change that for 51 years, and I appreciate talking with you because it's one step closer to everybody knowing your name. It's like the old Boston show where you walk into the bar and everybody knows your name.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to do with Civil Air Patrol. The history of Civil Air Patrol is the story of service, patriotism, innovation that has shaped both the national defense and the community for generations, all on the shoulders of the 1,500 people that were in Civil Air Patrol in the 1940s.
Wow. Fantastic.
It's I always say it's everyday heroes every day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time.
Not a problem. Anytime.
Yeah.
I love to chat about things. Civil Air Patrol is my passion. And obviously, anytime I get a chance to chat about the program and so forth, I'm there. So if you have any other thoughts, questions, things of that nature, you know where I live. Give me a holler and we'll connect.
Will do.